Hey y'all, the holidays are almost here, so I'm giving you some amazing deals on my books and planners so you can stock up for everyone in your life, or maybe just get some things for yourself. In fact, right now we are running such an amazing deal on my Start Your Day planner. This is a quarterly planner that helps me start my day calm, confident, and in control. It's the exact morning routine that I use, and it helps me have peace in my crazy life. Normally they're $29.97, but right now when you buy a 4-pack and get planners for your entire year, you get an $80 savings plus a free gift plus free shipping. That's right. You'll get 4 planners. You'll get a signed copy of my #1 national bestselling book, Take Back Your Time, which is the book that teaches you how to use this planning system. And you get free shipping, all for just $75, which is an $80 savings. Plus, there's other amazing deals you don't want to miss. So head over to ChristyWright.com/store to get your Christmas gifts today. That's ChristyWright.com/store.
This holiday season, step into the world of Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, the award-winning audio drama podcast from Hope Media Group and Compassion International. Returning for its 2024 season, this classic tale of redemption and forgiveness is brought to life like never before. Whether you're gathered with family or listening solo, Scrooge is the perfect way to embrace the true meaning of Christmas. Feel the power of the season's spirit with a story of transformation and hope. Catch Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, wherever you listen to podcasts or tune in on ScroogePodcast.com. This year, let the story move you and remind you of the joy of forgiveness and the magic of Christmas.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Get Your Hopes Up. I'm Christy Wright, and I'm so glad you're here. Romans 15:13 says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by power of the Holy Spirit." Our God is the God of hope, and he wants you to overflow with hope. So let's start our week by getting our hopes up again. Now today, we are continuing our conversation with part 2 of my interview with my good friend, Stephanie Mae Wilson. As a reminder, Stephanie is a 9-times author, top podcaster, and TEDx speaker, but she's also just a great friend who gives great advice. And we are talking about how tricky it can be to live your own life. As simple as that sounds, we've got expectations from other people or pressure from culture, and we're not sure how to make our own way sometimes. Stephanie has learned some lessons the hard way, and she gives really great advice to help us make our own way. I know you're going to love my conversation with Stephanie Mae Wilson, so check out part 2 now. I think we have such a strong internal guide, internal voice. And if you're a believer, if you're watching this and you're a believer, you have the Holy Spirit. So the power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead is the same power that's in you. And that guide, he is a guide. He will guide you into all truth. He will guide you into what is right for you. And often there can be times where none of the voices get to speak into your life. And they may be well-meaning people. They may be people that you love. They may be family members, but it's not in line. They didn't get the memo. It's not the conference call, all of that, where the Lord gave you a word and he's trusting you with that word that you will make the decision that's right for you. You know, one of the, I guess, most real examples I have of this, Stephanie, is as I have been thrown into kicking and screaming this world of neurodivergence, which is ADHD, autism. I would have never chosen this path. And now that I'm here, I would never leave it in a heartbeat. I feel so called into the space, not just for my own brain and learning that I have ADHD and my kids do and autism, but God's calling me to lead in this space and provide hope in this space. So much of what you're talking about applies to families that have neurological differences or have challenges or have special needs, because the competing advice in this space, Stephanie, is unending. Definitely do medicine. Definitely don't do medicine. Definitely do ABA. Don't do ABA. If you go to this school, you will ruin them. If you don't go to the school, you will ruin them. And it's like, what's on the line? Oh, my child, the most important person in the whole world to me. I want nothing more than to be an advocate for them and do exactly what's right. And I have no freaking idea what that is. The pressure and the emotion around that is so overwhelming. And I have for the last couple years tried to find my footing and find confidence in what is right for us. This school is right for us. This medicine is right for us. We do not do gluten-free. Thank you for you. I'm glad that works for you. We don't do essential oils. We do like, there's a million options and everybody says, this is the way. I'm so glad that the red and blue work for you. And here's what we're going to do because this works for us. And finding confidence in that when I'm not a medical expert, I'm not an autism expert, but finding confidence in something going, the voice in me, the Holy Spirit in me, the guide I have in me, and the proof I have in my life and in my days with my children, what's right for our family, our season, our rhythms. I'm the only one that walks in these shoes. And so I get to decide based on all the research and information and lived experience and input that I get, what is right for us. And there's still going to be people that disagree. There's still going to be people that throw stones, point fingers, heap on shame and whatever. And this is an extreme example with something like autism, but I think we all experience it in any season or stage of life. So how do you hold on to your confidence when you have the critics and the naysayers? And I can't believe you're doing it. Especially, I want to add a follow-up to that because I want you to really dig into this. How do you hold on to your confidence when the people that don't agree are people that you love, people maybe even in your family that they don't get it? And at the same time, you're going, okay, I love and respect this person, and they're not the parent, or they're not the one living in these shoes, in this house, in this job, business, whatever. They're not the one that gets to decide. How do you hold those two things? Because that can be really hard because those relationships are important to you.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. A couple of things came to mind as you were talking about this, and you're going to ruin your kid. That was so I had twins in November 2020, so it was like height of pandemic time.
Right.
And they were little and needed, extra care and like had reflux and cried all the time. Like, I mean, it was a lot. And my husband and I, both type A, like perfectionist, go-getter people, would be sitting up in the middle of the night Googling, like, what do I do about this? And what do I do about this? And what do I do about this? We're super sleep deprived. We're so stressed out. And we found that just all of the advice conflicted. Like, if you sleep train this way, you're going to ruin your kid forever. If you give them this formula, you're going to ruin your kid forever. If you don't give them formula, they're going to, all these different things. My therapist, again, God bless her, told me at the time, she said, Stephanie, you need to pick your gurus. She said, pick 2 or 3 people that you like their approach, you trust their sources, you like the way that they do things, the things that are important to you are also important to them. Pick your gurus, because the whole internet is too much. You need to like decide who you're going to follow and like kind of tune out some of the voices. And that has been so helpful in like just narrowing it down a little bit. But I think when it comes to making decisions that are right, that other people may disagree with, I think that there's something for me really powerful about trying to do as much of it as you can ahead of time. Like really deciding, how am I going to make this decision? Okay, well, I get to decide what will make me feel good about this decision. Well, having a cabinet, having some people, maybe you have someone who's gone ahead of you in this like decision, someone who is in it kind of with you, trying to figure it out as well. You also have other support system, like members of your support system in your cabinet. So like trying to figure out who it is that you are going to listen to, how you're going to make this decision, what you're going to evaluate it based on, what's important to you. Doing some of that thinking ahead of time, I think really, really helps when other people come at you and they disagree. One of the things that we're moving our family to Spain, which is a very fun decision. And also like, I would say, we have supportive grandparents. The grandparents in the family are not thrilled that we're taking the grandkids
Of course not.
away.
Of course not. I was going to ask, that was my follow-up. So I'm glad you just went to tell me about Spain. How's everyone feeling about that decision?
Yeah. For our parents, my parents, Carl's parents, they are so supportive. They are so loving. They're so in our corner. But like, of course they wish we weren't going. They don't want us to be far away. And that's really hard. I don't want to make my mom sad, and every time I feel guilty or Yeah, just really guilty. I go back to why we're making this decision in the first place. And we have just a list of reasons we're doing this. It's financial, it's lifestyle, it's the fact that my kids are absolute sponges right now. And the best thing we feel like we could teach them right now is another language. Like, what other things do you learn when you're 3 that you get to keep for your whole life? There are so many reasons that we're doing this. And I just have to come back to them. Like, this isn't about making my mom sad. I'm not doing it to make my mom sad. I'm not doing it to hurt grandparents. I'm doing it because I think that this is what's best for our whole family for this next season. And I think that holding on to those, like, when I make a really thoughtful decision ahead of time, and I really walk all the way through it, evaluating the different pieces, asking experts, doing my research, whatever I need to do to make a decision I feel good about. Once I've walked that far down the road, then I'm able to stand up better when other people are kind of pushing and pulling. Good. It's the time when I get really, really twisted up. Even today is when I make a decision based off of someone else's opinion, and then someone else has like a counter opinion. Then I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I have to stop and I have to know myself. And then I can stand up against whatever people have to throw at me. And also, I would say it's not easy. Like, it sucks when someone disagrees with you, especially if there's someone close to you. But it doesn't mean that you made the wrong decision.
That's exactly right. And I want to highlight that because your Spain example is a very extreme example. The example I would relate it to is, I love how you said you make the decision in advance. So Matt and I, we got pregnant with our first child in 2014. Carter was born in 2015. And so he was 10, 11 months old at Christmas of that first Christmas. And I remember the exact moment I was standing at Thanksgiving with my mother-in-law cleaning up from Thanksgiving dinner. And we were talking about Christmas plans. And I said, because I knew I decided in advance, we would be spending Christmas at our house. Our children, even a 10-month-old, would wake up on Christmas morning in our home. That's what we decided as a family, and that was right for us. And I knew that would be disappointing, and it went against expectations. It went against what we'd done the previous 5 years when we didn't have kids. It went against everything she did growing up. And so I knew that would be a tense, difficult conversation to have. And so when we talked about it, when she brought up Christmas, I said, well, we'll be in Nashville at Christmas because we're going to be in our home. We want to be in our home. And it was, to your point, it was very difficult to say, I don't want to disappoint her. No one, even Enneagram mates, shockingly, we don't like to disappoint people. We don't like to cause fights, but it's worth the work. For me, it's worth the effort, the awkwardness, the conflict, whatever it may be, those tense conversations, the difficult conversations, because what I want less than disappointing someone else is living my life with resentment. And I think that resentment you live with is actually more dangerous, because then I'm hateful all year long because I resent where I gave ground that wasn't right for me. And I, honest to goodness, Stephanie, have never met a person that lives their life for other people that doesn't have that resentment, because God has unique plans for each of us. Now, I want to talk a little bit about our culture here in the United States, because this was something that I pulled into my book, Take Back Your Time, as I'm talking about taking back your time, living your life with what matters to you. And one of the things that's interesting is, in the United States, we live in a very individualistic culture. So the family unit is the household, not the extended family. Other cultures, it's generations. Generations live in the same house. So they would feel, let's say the parents in the family would very much feel responsible to the older generations in a practical daily having dinner around the dinner table type of, they live in the same house. We don't live like that here in the United States. And so I think the reason I bring that up, regardless of your culture, you're moving to Spain, regardless of your, background, I think you need to decide, who do you feel responsible to? Who do you feel responsible to? And there's, again, red and blue here. But if you feel responsible to those grandparents, then you're going to make a very different decision about Christmas than if you don't feel responsible to them. I don't mean you don't love them. You don't want to please them. You don't want to spend Christmas with them. We'll spend Christmas on the 26th. I love and care for. But even with my mom, I'm an only child and she was a single mom. So I'm all she's got, Stephanie, and she's getting older. And at this season, I've had to, in my mind, define what do I feel responsible to for my mom? Because if not, I will live my whole life guilty, and I'll live my whole life trying to take care of someone that isn't maybe necessarily my responsibility and doesn't want me to take care of them. So for me, in a practical way, I have decided that I am responsible for my mom's cell phone and her car. And I decided that. No one made me, no one pressured me. Mom wouldn't even care. She doesn't put that pressure on me, but I've decided mom struggles to keep a functioning cell phone. It's always dead or it's broken or whatever. And her car always is having problems that she will not take care of it. These are things that are practical, that I can keep her transportation safe and I can keep her phone operational. I take care of those things, and I spend money and time and make sure that I do it because I personally want to do that. Other things mom does, if mom wants to create 50 new inventions in her backyard and look like a hoarder in the neighborhood, she's creative, she's amazing, but there's things that I personally don't agree with and wouldn't I don't get in her business. And I also don't feel guilty that I'm not going to her house to clean up after her every day or anything. It's her life. She's a grown woman. So I think deciding for yourself, just like you said, you get to decide, who do you feel responsible to? And how does that inform your decisions? And so it gives you permission to do what's right for you, even if that leads to disappointment for someone else, because you're able to set that boundary in a healthy way where you don't have that resentment. And it teaches them what to expect moving forward. So they're not going every single month, why aren't you coming to Christmas? Or why is my XYZ? You've set the expectation.
I think one of the things about deciding ahead of time that I love is again, it's so easy for me to go, well, I don't know. What do you want? What do you need? I have to decide in advance. I cannot do it on the fly. And I think that when you decide in advance, you can decide what you really, really evaluate what is important to you and where you're willing to give, So maybe for you, it's okay, I need to be at my house on the 25th, but you know what? I'm fine hopping on a plane and being on our way to your house on the 26th and 27th. We'll pretend it's Christmas morning. And so we get to decide where. I feel like I'm doing this with my toddlers all the time.
Negotiating all the time.
Yes. Where I need to hold firm. And I really almost gave my daughter mac and cheese this morning because I'm okay, well, we can do mac and cheese this for breakfast. Why do I care if it's only for lunch? Okay.
Right.
I can give on that. So I think, being able to think through it ahead of time, you really get to decide, what do I need so that exactly I'm not feeling resentful? And then where am I willing to give? Because I really don't care that much. The boundaries about what to expect, something that I've had to think about in my life a lot, and this is really hard for me, is I've had to make a list of importance when it comes to my people. And I have to do this because otherwise I'll say, hey, yes, I'll go to coffee with someone I've never met and I will never see my husband again. I can fill up so much time, or I can, I can help you with that. But in the process, I've not been there for my kids as much as they need me. It's really hard to say, okay, mom, you're third on the list, but she's probably about third on the list after your kids and your husband.
Absolutely.
So that making the list thing for someone who can feel so pulled by relationships because I want to love everybody, in a certain way. Seeing it in black and white that unless my kids are taken care of, unless Carl's taken care of, unless my family's taken care of, unless my best friends are taken care of, I would love to do this thing, but I can't.
Hey, I don't know about you, but sometimes I can just get discouraged. I get down, I get some bad news, or I'm just in a bad mood. That's why I'm so thankful for Glorify. Glorify is the #1 Christian daily devotional app. You can start your morning by reading the Bible passage of the day. You can dive into their daily devotional. You can use their guided meditations throughout your day, and you can even finish your day with their sleep meditations to help you wind down and put your mind and heart at ease, which I can tell you I definitely need. Glorify is truly an app that points you to God and the truth of His Word all throughout your day. And right now, for my listeners, you get a 14-day free trial so you could try it out and see how it works for you. Go to glorify-app.com/hope to download the Glorify app. You want to go to glorify-app.com/hope to get the Glorify app and go ahead and get started on your free trial. Hey, Christmas is right around the corner, and I know that you are making your list and checking it twice, or probably 3 or 4 times a day, more likely. That's why I want to tell you about a huge sale going on my site right now. For the first time ever, you can get any of my best-selling books for just $9. Y'all, that's cheaper than Amazon. And guess what? Every single copy is signed by me. You can also get my Start Your Day Planner for $10 off, or you can get the Start Your Day Planner bundle where you get 4 planners, a free copy of my best-selling book, Take Back Your Time, which teaches you how to use the planning system, and free shipping, all for just $75. That's an $80 savings. So you can get planners for all of 2025 or as gifts for everyone on your list and save a ton at the same time. So head over to ChristyWright.com to stock up on Christmas gifts that help you grow yourself, grow your faith, and grow your business in 2025. You can save up to 60%, but this sale won't last long. So head over to ChristyWright.com to start shopping today. That's ChristyWright.com. I think it's so important too. You talk about this in your book, and I talk about this in Take Back Your Time as well. This is kind of a theme that keeps coming up for me. Your season affects this so much as well. So I use the example of cell phone and car with mom right now. My mom, Stephanie, she is bicycling across town. She's building tiny houses for homeless people. Like, she is not a normal 73-year-old at all. She's incredible. Fast forward 10 years, I may take on lots more responsibility for her housing and her care and what she needs. Maybe, I would love to have a property where we have a house on our property where mom could live there and she could do all her crazy inventions and I could make sure she's safe. Like, it's a lot by season. And it can even, in the micro level, can even come down to a day. So I might say, my mom is third on the list, but if it's a day like today and my kids are taken care of and everybody's taken care of and all of a sudden mom gets in a bike accident or something, it's like mom has now moved up to number 1. And so these things I think are flexible. We think of priorities as God, other, self, and it's concrete. But in the practical, these often shift around depending on what's going on and depending on the day, the week, the season, and so on. And so I love how you give people permission to consider that. Okay, I could talk to you all day, but I do have one more question before we wrap up. I want to ask you about one thing that I think is really, really, really super hard. Asking you about all these hard things. So a big conversation happening in our generation right now, and I've seen it on Instagram. It is happening a lot, especially in parenting, is undoing the past. Okay. So it's this conversation of changing how we parent from how we were parented. So going to therapy, healing from our own trauma, if you have trauma from the past, or anger, wounds from how we were parented, trying to regulate ourselves and heal from that while raising kids very differently, with all the psychology research we have today, of all the information we have that is just better as every generation gets more informed and wiser. We have more information than they did. They had more information than their parents and so on. So we're all getting better, hopefully, as a human race here. But our generation is feeling, I think, the squeeze of expectations from the older generation, the baby boomers that are like, I spanked and you turned out fine. I did that. If you just give them dinner and if they don't like it, they'll eventually eat. And we're going, okay, we know what is going on with sensory needs, sensory challenges, how to give your children a voice so that they are 40 and they know they have a voice and they actually get to use their voice. Let's talk about the difficulty and what we do about it, of how we hold both of those, honor our family without being like, you screwed us up and we're trying to fix it. Where you're honoring the parents, you're honoring the kids, you're trying to do your best, you're trying to undo, and how we do that well. The example that comes to mind for me, and I have plenty of my own stories with my childhood, but Matt and I were in counseling. This was, I believe it was when we had 2 kids at the time, and we were in counseling, just working through some different things. And one of the things we were talking about was what was normal in Matt's household growing up. Some things that were just culturally, this is what they did and this is what they didn't do, which ironically was exact extreme opposite of mine. So we're kind of like moving closer together from my extreme, like where my household was everybody just let their feelings fly, talked about everything, fought all the time, whatever. It's like no inhibitions whatsoever. His was, they didn't talk about anything. They didn't talk about a lot. And I'll never forget what the therapist said to Matt. she said, so what you learned growing up was these are things we don't talk about, or that we sweep it under the rug, or we don't, I think we were talking about conflict, like how we handle conflict because we viewed it so differently. And he said, no, I didn't learn that growing up. That's just what we did. And she said, when you're a child, your home is your classroom. So what you learned growing up was this is what we do. And it was so profound for me. She was talking to him, but it was profound for me. And I think when you think about us as a generation of parents, young adults, whatever, grown adults, what classroom did you grow up in? What did you learn in your classroom? And how do we unlearn that, Stephanie? How do we unlearn what we learned in the classroom of home so that we can teach a different way to our kids when we don't even realize in many ways the ways that it's still affecting us because it's so deeply ingrained, but also we have the pressure of our parents that we love that did a great job with what they knew, just like our kids are going to be in counseling and talking about the stuff we do. We're like, we did the best we could. We thought you could have mac and cheese for breakfast. We thought it was okay.
I know.
We don't know. You don't know what you don't know when you're in it.
It's so my my like upbringing was a little bit unique in the fact that both of my parents are psychologists. And so and people used to think that was really weird. They were like, oh, are you okay? And now everyone's like, great, counseling's great. But so, yeah, I grew up with 2 psychologists. And so that was, I don't know, just that's kind of the background that I have.
Let me give you a practical example.
Yeah,
and you tell me how to work through this, okay? Something very common that a baby boomer, any particular baby boomer might say, okay, would be feed them dinner. And if they don't want it, too bad. If they're hungry, they'll eat it. And I know that my child has extreme sensory challenges. Asking him to eat that food, even if it's delicious pasta, if it's a sensory experience that is alarming to him, his brain goes into fight or flight, Stephanie. It's like you asking me to eat a roach. What if you asked me to eat a roach? If you're hungry enough, you'll eat it. I would panic. I would panic if you put a roach in front of me and said, the only thing I could eat is a roach. But that's what that feels like to him. That's what his whole body is in fight or flight over this pasta. And you're going, it's Alfredo, man, it's delicious. It doesn't matter what I see and experience. It's not what he sees and experience. And so you've got this pressure in something so daily like eating, where I'm trying to accommodate my child, still challenge them of like, okay, well, could we take a bite or touch it or put it in the no thank you dish or what, all the things that we do to help a child that's having sensory overwhelm at a mealtime, and also guard against the parents that are going, just eat. And you're like, I got this. I'm here. I feel like all the time. And it's not just because my child has a neurodivergent brain. I feel like all kids I feel like our generation of parents feels like this. It feels like we're standing like this between our kids and the world. And it just feels crushing. And so I'm just wondering if you have any tips to help us protect our children, help our children do what's right by our children in the example of parents or in our life, and still withstand the pressure coming down from different ways of doing things from the past, because it's still there.
It's still there. And that's one of the things that was so shocking to me in doing the research for this book was looking at the past. Like I was, asking, like, why does it feel like there's so much pressure on us as women? Like, is that just me? Am I making it up? And it's like, no. For all of time. So the whole world has had opinions about what a woman should do with her life. And that's in grand, big picture ways, and then small everyday ways. Like, we've never been free to just make our own decisions, whether it's about how we feed our kids or whether or not we get married or what we do for work. Like, there have always been voices. And so I think the first thing is, like, if you're feeling this, you're not making it up. This is very real. And this is, we are pulling against hundreds of years, thousands of years of cultural precedent in every decision that we make. Also, even just generational, even just the generation above us. So yeah, I think the first thing is, it's really helpful to know that we're not making something up. You're not making it up. This is actually really, really hard. I think, again, it comes back to making decisions ahead of time and doing the research that you need to do. I really feel like my panic, like I feel in my chest right now with that example, my panic is that I need to try to figure out what to do right in this moment. And I need it's too much. My brain is like shutting down because I'm balancing so many needs and expectations all at the same time. And so I think in a moment that's calm, before you get there, like noticing what areas of your life are you feeling this kind of crunch, stress, push, panic in, and taking some time to really think through them. Do the research you need to do, consult your chosen gurus, which are going to be different from Dr. Spock or whoever it was that your parents read. Consult your chosen gurus. And then once you have those, like that information in your back pocket of like, well, these are, pediatric nutritionists, and this is what they say, like you get to make a plan and have the reasons for that plan so that when you're in the moment, you know what to do for your kid. And then you also know how to explain it if there's someone else who's there watching you. And I think that like with boundaries, we give a couple chances. If someone behaves in a way that is not okay with you, so say you're in that moment and say it's your mom, and your mom comes in and says, well, you should just feed him, like just make him eat this. You can say, hey, Mom, this is what I need from you. And you communicate clearly. This is what I need from you in this moment. This is really stressful for us. And also, this also happens in a separate moment. It doesn't happen in the stress of dinner time. Like you say, hey, Mom, this is what I need from you. This is what's going on. I'm going to explain this to you. We don't have to explain ourselves to everybody, but the people who are closest to us, I think we give them the time. And then we ask for what we need. What I need from you in that moment is to just let me do my thing. Trust me with this. I know that you parented me great. You give them a pat on the back because that's what we need as parents. Just give them a pat on the back. But then also like my kid is really unique. And so I've done some really specific research for them. And so this is what I'm going to do. If they step in again in a way that is inappropriate, in a way that is unhelpful, you can give them one more chance and say, hey, remember, this is what I said. This is what I need from you. If that's too hard, maybe we do dinner separately. And then if it happens again, then you draw a boundary and maybe it's like, we will hang out after dinner. We will hang out before dinner. But in this stressful moment for this season where food is really hard, we're figuring this out. I just need you to not be an audience there.
Yeah. That's so good. I think one of the things I'm so grateful for, I use the example of my mom. She's never done that with the food because she knows Conley and knows what he eats. And she's always like, okay, quesadilla, okay, peanut butter jelly. Yeah. But I think that's such a relevant one of just like the difference between baby boomers. Like, because I've posted on Instagram before about like, for example, challenges at dinner, and you'll see that generation go, just feed it. I ate, it's just like, you give them too many choices, all that. You'll see that perspective a lot. I think it's common. But one of the things I'm so thankful for with my mom is mom and I have always been so close because she was a single parent and I was the only child, that we can be really blunt with each other. And it doesn't hurt each other's feelings, not in a rude way, but I'll say, I say to her often, I'll say, I'm right here. Like if she tries to step in, I go, I'm here. Like we're in my house. I'm here. I'm the parent. I'm here. Or sometimes she's come over before and I'll say to her before she walks to the door, hey, I'm not in a good place. I'm really stressed right now. The best thing you can do for me is just to be really quiet, like not be loud voices or whatever. And it's like, I'm trying to keep things real calm. Can you just help me? Like exactly what you said, I will communicate. Here's the context you're walking into. Cause she doesn't know. If she doesn't know the context, she'll come in like, hey, she's loud and like, let's get some game going. And she doesn't know the context she's walking into with 3 kids under age 9, special needs challenges. And so, yeah, I just love that communicating with them and asking for what you need. And because it's so ingrained in them, it may take several reminders, of like, hey, this is how we do it. Hey, this is how we do it. Hey, this is how we do it. And I think it's just giving everybody grace in all directions because we're all doing the best we can with the information that we have, which, we're talking about pressure and they feel that pressure that comes from so many different directions.
Well, and they with parents, I think the reason I said, give them a pat on the back. Hey, you did a great job. I think a lot of times, like our parents aren't feeding us anymore. We're not toddlers. We eat on our own. Like I think that there's a time and place to dig up things from the past and talk to our parents about the way we were raised and get apologies if we need to, give feedback if we need to, like go to therapy if we need to. But then there are certain areas where it's just like our parents are humans too, and they feel insecure about the way that they raised us, and watching us do something different, it feels like a criticism to them that
a rejection.
Hey, yes,
right.
You did this wrong, so I'm going to do it differently. So I think taking that little pause and saying, hey, like, I know at home we did this. And even if you like dig up a little bit extra love or encouragement, or like put a little sprinkle on top for them to say, hey, I love how we did dinners at home, but you know what? My family's different. And, you know, and my kid needs this, and explain what that is. But I think that little moment of like, hey, this isn't about you. You did a good job. Like, this isn't about you, will really go a long way in getting them off your back.
Yeah, I love that. Stephanie, I could ask you 50 more questions about this because this is such an important topic and it's so difficult. I love how you started and ended by saying, this is hard. If it feels hard, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just is hard. I know so many people want to know how they can connect with you and how they can get a copy of your new book, Create a Life You Love. And so tell people how they can get the book, get connected with you, and follow along with everything you're doing.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So my home on the internet is my website, and stephaniemaywilson.com. And that's where, you know, my shop is. That's where my courses are. That's where you can find my podcast. My podcast is Girls Night with Stephanie May Wilson. Christy's been a guest several times. I love my podcast community. And then the book is available anywhere books are sold. Again, Create a Life You Love. It's yellow. It's bright. It has tons of flowers on the front. It's such a fun cover. My husband designed it, so I feel like I have to brag on it a little extra.
Yeah.
But that's where you can find it.
That's awesome. It's such a needed message at a time when everybody has a microphone on the internet. Google is going to tell you all this conflicting advice. And it's harder and harder to trust our own voice when you have so many voices screaming at you all day, every day about every decision. This is so needed. So thank you for writing it. Thank you for just blessing our audience. And thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right. That's it for this week's episode of Get Your Hopes Up. I love hanging out with you every Monday to help you get to know God, get closer to Him, and get your hopes up again. Be sure to share this episode on Instagram and Facebook so other people can get their hopes up as well. And then follow the Christy Wright podcast channel so you never miss a new show. Then I'll see you next Monday for another new episode of Get Your Hopes Up.
Hey, I'm Greer, host of the Unfinished Idea podcast, where listeners and I get to journey together to better understand the neurodiverse world. Together with my husband, we have 2 boys and 2 dogs and raising a child with additional needs. Our day-to-day experience isn't being talked about in everyday life, and I see a gap in those leading people who are neurodivergent. Whether you're a parent, a friend, a teacher, or a neighbor, the neurodivergent world is all around us. So this podcast is for you. I have conversations over a cup of tea or coffee, helping to bring awareness about how neurodivergent people experience the world, as well as families who are raising children with different needs. This podcast will share practical help, tips, and the joys, struggles, and differences in being neurodivergent or raising a child who is. Each week, I will spend 30 minutes talking and interviewing others in the neurodiverse space and giving you the opportunity to learn and grow and feel seen and heard by how we interact with each other and the world. Search for The Unfinished Idea in your favorite podcast app and come learn about the neurodivergent world. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.